On Father's Day, my daughter gave her father-in-law a $13,000 cruise ticket, paid for with my money, and I got a $2 lottery ticket. She laughed, saying, "If I'm lucky, half of it is mine." I smiled, but my heart was boiling with anger. That ticket brought me $120 million, and I taught her a lesson she will never forget. Instead of half the amount, she got what she deserved. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. Dad, here's your gift. If you win, remember half is mine. Kara's voice cut through the Father's Day dinner atmosphere as she tossed the lottery ticket across my dining table with that familiar smirk. I caught the crumpled paper, my weathered fingers smoothing it against the tablecloth. $2. The numbers blurred slightly as I stared at them, trying to process what had just happened. Very thoughtful, sweetheart, I managed, forcing a smile. This is... Oh, but wait, Kara interrupted, her voice rising with theatrical excitement. I haven't given Eric his gift yet. She reached behind her chair and produced an elegant gift box, the kind that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. The ribbon alone looked expensive, shimmering under my simple dining room light. Eric straightened in his chair, his perfectly pressed shirt catching the afternoon sunlight streaming through my small windows. My daughter's father-in-law had the kind of confident posture that came from never worrying about money. These, Kara announced, lifting the cruise tickets from their silk-lined box, cost $13,000. Eric deserves the best for everything he's done for our family. The weight of the lottery ticket in my hand suddenly felt microscopic. I watched Eric examine the tickets with satisfaction, his manicured fingers tracing the gold embossing. Now this is what I call a proper gift, Kara, Eric said, his voice carrying that particular tone of approval reserved for expensive things. His eyes met mine across the table. Your father taught you well. The phrase hung in the air like smoke. Other family members shifted uncomfortably, suddenly finding their plates fascinating. My sister Margaret cleared her throat, while my nephew Tommy studied his hands. Dad always said actions speak louder than words, Kara replied, her laugh bright and sharp. She glanced at Eric and something passed between them, a look that made my chest tighten. Some people show love through grand gestures. Others... She gestured vaguely at my lottery ticket. I held the paper steady, though my hands wanted to shake. I appreciate the thought, Kara, really. Oh, it's just a little joke, she said, waving dismissively. But seriously, if you hit the jackpot, I expect my cut. I paid for it, after all. Eric chuckled, the sound low and satisfied. Perhaps next year Stephen will surprise us all with something more substantial. The afternoon sunlight highlighted every uncomfortable expression around my table. Margaret's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Tommy's wife Sarah studied the family photos on my walls with sudden intensity. Even my grandson Jake, usually buried in his phone, looked up with confusion. These cruise tickets, Eric continued, fanning them out like playing cards, represent 2 weeks in the Mediterranean. First-class accommodations, private balcony, all meals included, the kind of experience that creates lasting memories. I nodded, my throat tight. Sounds wonderful. It is wonderful, Kara agreed. Eric has always been there for us financially. He helped us buy our house, paid for Jake's private school, even covers our country club membership. He's earned something special. The lottery ticket felt like it might disintegrate in my grip. I remembered the double shifts I'd worked at the garage, the overtime hours fixing transmissions and rebuilding engines, all to pay for Kara's college education. The nights I'd fallen asleep in my chair, too tired to make it to bed, after working 16-hour days to afford her textbooks. Well, I said quietly, I hope you both enjoy the cruise. We will, Eric said, slipping the tickets back into their box with ceremonial care. This is how families should treat each other, with generosity and respect. The conversation moved on, but I remained focused on the tiny piece of paper in my hands. $2, the same amount I used to give Kara for ice cream when she was 7, back when that small gesture could light up her entire face. After dinner, they left as quickly as they'd come. Car doors slammed outside, engines started, and voices faded into the evening air. I remained at my table, still holding the lottery ticket, watching the last of the sunlight disappear from my dining room. The house settled into the familiar quiet of my solitary life. I looked around at the family photos on my walls, the modest furniture I'd bought piece by piece over the years, the careful decorations I'd set up for a Father's Day that was already over. The lottery ticket lay beside my empty coffee cup, forgotten in the morning light filtering through my kitchen window. I stared at my laptop screen, numbers swimming before my eyes as I reviewed my monthly bank statement. A ritual I'd maintained for 40 years, first as a young father counting every penny, now as a careful retiree protecting what little I had. My finger traced down the list of transactions, utility bills, grocery store purchases, the modest amount I'd spent on Father's Day dinner ingredients. Everything accounted for, everything expected, until I reached a line that made my coffee grow cold in my mouth. Premium travel services, 13,643. I blinked, certain I'd misread. The amount stared back at me, unchanged. My hands trembled as I cross-referenced the date with my calendar. 1 week ago, Thursday. I'd been nowhere near a travel agency. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Kara still had authorized access to my account, a precaution I'd set up years ago when her mother died, in case of emergencies. I'd forgotten about it completely. My phone felt heavy in my shaking hands as I dialed her number. Each ring echoed in my quiet kitchen, mixing with the sound of my own heartbeat. "Hello, Dad." Her voice carried that particular tone of bored politeness she used when I interrupted her busy life. "Kara, I'm looking at my bank statement." I tried to keep my voice steady. "There's a charge for over $13,000 from premium travel services." Silence. Then a laugh, light and dismissive. "Oh, that? I bought Dad Eric his cruise. He deserved something nice for once." The words hit me like a slap. You took $13,000 from my account without asking?" "I didn't take anything, Dad. I used family money for a family gift." Her tone shifted, becoming slightly defensive. "You wouldn't have spent it anyway. It's just sitting there." "Kara, that's theft." My voice broke on the word. "You stole from me." "It's not stealing when it's family money," she snapped. "Eric has always been there for us financially. He helped us when we needed it. This is just returning the favor." I gripped the phone tighter. "I'm your father, Kara. I raised you. I worked double shifts to pay for your college, And Eric helped us both move beyond that," she interrupted. "He's shown us what real success looks like, what it means to be generous, to live well, to give meaningful gifts instead of—" She paused, and I could hear her dismissive sigh. "Instead of lottery tickets." The cruelty in her voice left me speechless. This was my daughter, the little girl who used to fall asleep in my lap while I read her bedtime stories, the teenager who'd cried on my shoulder when her mother died, the young woman who'd once called me her hero. "Dad, are you there?" "I'm here," I whispered. "Look, I know you're upset, but think about it rationally. Eric earned this. He's successful. He's contributed to our family's well-being. He deserves recognition for everything he's done." "And what about everything I've done?" Another pause. When she spoke again, her voice was colder than I'd ever heard it. "You did what fathers are supposed to do. Eric went above and beyond." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, the dial tone echoing in my empty kitchen like a funeral dirge. My hands shook as I set it down, the same hands that had held her as a baby, taught her to ride a bike, applauded at her graduation. I walked to my nightstand and grabbed the lottery ticket, the $2 joke she'd thrown at me like scraps to a dog. Even this pitiful gift had been bought with my own stolen money. The irony was so perfect it almost made me laugh. Instead, I crumpled the ticket in my fist and marched to the kitchen trash can. The paper made a satisfying thud as it hit the bottom, joining the coffee grounds and empty cans that represented my simple, apparently worthless life. The house felt smaller suddenly, the walls closer together. I needed air, needed to move, needed to be anywhere but in this place where my daughter's betrayal echoed off every surface. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door, my legs carrying me down the familiar streets of my neighborhood. The morning air was crisp, filled with the sounds of suburban life, lawnmowers starting up, children playing, neighbors calling greetings across fence lines. Mrs. Patterson waved from her garden, her arthritic hands gentle with her tomato plants. "Beautiful morning, Stephen." "Yes, it is," I replied automatically, though the day felt anything but beautiful. I walked past the Henderson house, where Tom was teaching his grandson to throw a baseball. The boy's laughter carried on the breeze, pure and uncomplicated. I remembered teaching Kara the same way, her small hands gripping the ball with determination, her face bright with joy when she finally made a perfect throw. When had that changed? When had my love become insufficient, my life something to be ashamed of? The questions followed me down Maple Street, past the corner market where I'd bought Kara candy as a child, past the park where she'd played on summer afternoons. Every memory felt tainted now, viewed through the lens of what she'd become. My phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. Maybe Kara had reconsidered. Maybe she'd realized what she'd done. Dad, I talked to Eric about the money situation. He thinks you're overreacting. It's not like you needed it for anything important. We'll pay you back when we can. Maybe for Christmas. Kay. I stopped walking. Read the message again, then a third time. When we can. As if $13,000 was pocket change. As if my financial security was negotiable. As if I should be grateful for the possibility of eventual repayment. The phone rang before I could respond. My sister Margaret's name appeared on the screen. Stephen, are you okay? Kara called me, said you were upset about some money thing. She stole $13,000 from my account, Margaret. The words came out flat, emotionless. To buy her father-in-law a cruise. Silence. Then, she what? She still had access to my account. She used it to buy Eric a $13,000 cruise for Father's Day. She gave me a $2 lottery ticket and told me half the winnings were hers. Jesus, says Stephen, are you sure? Maybe there's some mistake. She admitted it, said it wasn't really stealing because it was family money. I laughed bitterly. She said Eric deserved it because he's been generous to them. Unlike me, apparently. Margaret's voice softened with the kind of sympathy that made my chest ache. Stephen, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she'd become so... I don't even know what to call it. Cruel, I said simply. She's become cruel. We talked for a few more minutes, Margaret offering to come over, to call Kara herself, to help however she could. But there was nothing she could do. Nothing anyone could do. My daughter had shown me exactly what I meant to her, and no amount of intervention could change that truth. I walked home slowly, my legs heavy with exhaustion that had nothing to do with physical exertion. The house felt different when I entered, smaller, shabbier, marked by the kind of poverty that comes from being seen through someone else's dismissive eyes. The trash can in my kitchen held the crumpled lottery ticket, a reminder of the joke that had started this whole nightmare. I stared at it for a long moment, remembering the weight of those $2 in my hand, the laughter in Kara's voice as she tossed it across the table. Tomorrow I would call the bank. I would revoke her access to my account, take the steps I should have taken years ago. But tonight I would sit in my quiet house and mourn the daughter I'd lost, the relationship that had died somewhere along the way without my noticing. The lottery ticket remained in the trash, forgotten and worthless, while I grieved for something far more valuable that I'd already lost. But the next morning arrived with the kind of brutal clarity that follows a sleepless night. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee growing cold as I stared at the bank's phone number, written on a piece of paper. My hands felt steady for the first time in 24 hours. First National Bank Customer Service, this is Rebecca. How can I help you? I need to revoke authorized access to my account, I said. Someone has been making unauthorized purchases. The conversation was surprisingly simple. Rebecca's voice carried professional sympathy as she walked me through the process. Within 15 minutes, Kara's access was terminated, new security measures were in place, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the solid certainty of protecting myself. Is there anything else I can help you with today, Mr. Woods? No, that covers it. Thank you. I hung up and looked around my kitchen with new eyes. The modest space felt different, not shabby but honest, clean, mine. My gaze fell on the trash can, and I remembered the lottery ticket lying crumpled among the coffee grounds, the $2 joke that had started this whole mess, purchased with my own stolen money and thrown back at me like I was some kind of charity case. I walked over and stared down at the crumpled paper. Even this pathetic gesture had been bought with money taken from my account without permission. The irony was almost laughable. She'd stolen from me to buy me a gift, then claimed half the potential winnings. With sudden, decisive anger, I grabbed the ticket and smoothed it out on my counter. The numbers stared back at me. 807, 14, 23, 35, 42. Powerball 18. I memorized them, these digits that represented everything wrong with my relationship with my daughter, then crumpled the paper again and threw it back in the trash, with more force than necessary. The morning stretched ahead of me, empty and quiet. I needed to move, needed to clear my head, needed to be somewhere other than this kitchen where yesterday's betrayal still echoed off the walls. I grabbed my jacket and headed outside, letting my feet carry me down the familiar streets of my neighborhood. The morning air was crisp, filled with the sounds of honest work. Lawn mowers starting up, children playing, neighbors calling greetings across fence lines. Mrs. Patterson was in her garden again, her weathered hands gentle with her roses. She looked up as I passed, her smile warm and genuine. "Morning, Stephen. You're out early today?" "Couldn't sleep," I said, pausing at her fence. "Thought a walk might help." She nodded knowingly. "Sometimes the best thinking happens when your feet are moving. My Harold used to say that." Her late husband had been a good man, a mechanic like me who'd worked with his hands and treated people with respect. The kind of man who understood that character mattered more than bank accounts. "He was right about that," I said. I continued walking past the Henderson house where Tom was washing his car with his grandson's help. The boy was more interested in splashing water than cleaning, but Tom didn't seem to mind. Their laughter carried on the breeze, uncomplicated and pure. 2 blocks down, I passed the corner market where I'd bought Cara candy as a child. The owner, Mr. Chen, was arranging fruit in his window display, each apple and orange placed with care. He'd been here for 30 years, serving the neighborhood with quiet dignity, never getting rich, but never compromising his principles either. These people understood something Cara had forgotten, that there was honor in honest work, in treating people with respect, in building relationships based on something more substantial than financial gain. My phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. Maybe Cara had reconsidered. Maybe she'd realized what she'd done. "Dad, I talked to Eric about the money situation. He thinks you're overreacting. It's not like you needed it for anything important. We'll pay you back when we can. Maybe for Christmas." "Kay." I stopped walking, read the message again. The casual dismissal of my financial security, the assumption that $13,000 was somehow unimportant to me, the vague promise of eventual repayment. It all crystallized into a moment of perfect clarity. This was who she had become. This was what I meant to her. I deleted the message without responding and kept walking. The familiar streets of my neighborhood wrapped around me like a comfortable blanket, filled with the sounds and sights of people living honest lives. Whatever happened next, I would face it on my own terms, with my dignity intact. The trash can in my kitchen held the crumpled lottery ticket, forgotten and worthless, while I walked toward whatever came next, with my head held high. 3 days had passed since I'd taken control of my finances. 3 quiet days of morning coffee, simple meals, and the kind of peace that comes from knowing you've done the right thing. I was stirring scrambled eggs in my cast-iron skillet when the phone shattered the silence with its shrill demand for attention. "Dad, what the hell did you do to my card?" Kara's voice exploded through the receiver before I could even say hello. "It was declined at Nordstrom. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was?" I set down my spatula carefully, my hand surprisingly steady. "I removed your access after you stole $13,000 from my account." "I didn't steal anything." Her voice pitched higher, that familiar tone she'd used as a teenager when caught in a lie. "That money was for family, for someone who actually contributes to this family. You didn't ask permission, Kara. You just took it." Through the phone I could hear the rustle of shopping bags, the distant hum of mall traffic. She was calling me from the parking lot of whatever expensive store had just humiliated her. I was standing there with an $800 handbag, Dad. $800? The sales associate ran my card 3 times before telling me, in front of everyone, that it was declined. Other customers were staring. I looked like some kind of common person who can't afford her purchases. The way she said common person made my chest tighten, as if being unable to afford $800 handbags was some kind of moral failing. "I'm sorry you were embarrassed," I said quietly, "but that doesn't change what you did." "What I did?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. What I did was treat Eric with the respect he deserves, something you've never learned to do. I carried the phone to my kitchen table, settling into the same chair where I'd discovered her theft just days before. Kara, I raised you. I worked 60-hour weeks to put you through college. I thought that counted for something. And Eric helped us move beyond all that, she snapped. He's shown us what real success looks like, what it means to be generous, not sitting on piles of money like some kind of miser. The accusation hit like a physical blow. 40 years of careful saving, of choosing generic groceries, and driving used cars so I could provide for my family. And this was how she saw it. You're going to regret this decision, Dad. Her voice dropped to a tone I'd never heard before, cold and calculating. You think you can humiliate me publicly and just walk away? You think there won't be consequences? Kara, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm protecting myself. No, you're being selfish, and petty, and cruel. Each word landed with deliberate precision. But I won't let you get away with it. I have friends, Dad. People who matter in this community. People who understand what family loyalty actually means. The line went dead with a sharp click that echoed in my quiet kitchen. I set the phone down and returned to my eggs, but they'd gone cold in the pan. Even reheated, they tasted like ash. That evening I tried to distract myself with television, flipping through channels without really watching. A nature documentary about wolves, a cooking show featuring elaborate desserts I'd never attempt, a news program discussing economic policies that felt irrelevant to my small world. My tablet sat on the coffee table, unopened since yesterday. I'd been avoiding social media, avoiding the temptation to check on Kara's life from a distance, but curiosity finally won. I opened Facebook and scrolled through the usual collection of neighbor updates and distant cousin vacation photos. Then I saw it. Kara's post sat at the top of my feed, accompanied by a photo of her looking devastated, her eyes red-rimmed with carefully applied tears. Having to write this breaks my heart, but I need support right now. My father has decided to cut off my access to what has always been our family money. After years of me being there for him, helping him through Mom's death, managing his affairs when he couldn't, he suddenly decided I'm not worthy of his trust. All because I bought Eric, who has been more of a father figure to our family than anyone, a gift with money that was sitting unused in an account. I never thought my own father could be so selfish and cruel. I'm honestly questioning everything I thought I knew about the man who raised me. The post had 47 likes and 23 comments. I scrolled through them, my stomach churning with each sympathetic response. OMG, Kara, I'm so sorry. Older people can become so paranoid about money. Your father should be grateful to have such a caring daughter. This is awful. Eric is such a wonderful man. He deserved that gift. Your dad is being ridiculous. Family money should benefit the whole family. Hang in there, honey. I closed the tablet and sat in my darkened living room, listening to the house settle around me. Somewhere in my bedroom, forgotten in the kitchen trash, lay the crumpled lottery ticket that had started this whole mess. The $2 joke that had revealed the truth about what I meant to my daughter. The following evening found me in the same chair, remote control resting loosely in my palm as I surfed channels with no particular purpose. The social media aftermath had been consuming my thoughts all day. Neighbors who suddenly avoided eye contact, the cashier at the grocery store who'd looked at me with newfound suspicion. Kara's narrative was spreading, and I was losing the battle for my own reputation without even fighting. Click, a cooking show featuring complicated French pastries. Click, a sitcom from the 90s that I'd seen countless times. Click, local news discussing city budget issues. Click, the state lottery drawing program. Good evening, Ohio. Welcome to tonight's Powerball drawing, where we have a rollover jackpot of $120 million. I almost changed the channel, but something about the announcer's cheerful voice made me pause. Maybe it was the absurdity of it. Here I was, being called a greedy miser for protecting my modest savings, while someone was about to win more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Tonight's winning numbers are... The announcer's voice took on that ceremonial tone reserved for momentous occasions. 7, 14, 23, 35, 42. And the Powerball is 18. My hand froze on the remote. Those numbers sounded familiar, disturbingly familiar. I grabbed a pen from the coffee table and scribbled the numbers on the back of an envelope as the announcer repeated them. 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, Powerball 18. My heart began racing before my mind fully caught up. I knew those numbers. I'd seen them recently, stared at them long enough to memorize them in a moment of anger and irony. The lottery ticket, the crumpled piece of paper I'd thrown away in disgust 3 days ago. I stumbled to the kitchen, my legs unsteady beneath me. The trash can sat innocently by the counter, filled with the detritus of solitary living, coffee grounds, empty cans, food scraps. I plunged my hands into the mess, digging through banana peels and soggy paper towels, searching for a small piece of paper that might change everything. My fingers found it near the bottom, stuck to the side of a yogurt container. The lottery ticket, stained with coffee grounds and wrinkled beyond recognition, but still readable. I carried it to the kitchen sink and carefully rinsed off the worst of the debris, my hands shaking as I unfolded it. 7, 14, 23, 35, 42. Powerball 18. Perfect. Every single number matched. I sat down hard in my kitchen chair, staring at the damaged ticket in disbelief. The $2 joke that Kara had thrown at me like scraps to a dog. The gift she'd bought with my own stolen money and then claimed half ownership of. The piece of garbage I'd discarded in anger. It was worth $120 million. I called the lottery hotline with trembling fingers, following the automated prompts to verify the winning numbers. The mechanical voice confirmed what I already knew. The winning Powerball numbers for tonight's drawing are 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, with Powerball 18. The jackpot amount is $120 million. I hung up and looked around my modest kitchen with new eyes. The outdated appliances, the worn linoleum floor, the simple table where I ate my solitary meals, all of it suddenly felt surreal, like a movie set about to be struck and replaced with something entirely different. The lottery ticket lay on my table, still damp from its rescue from the garbage, still creased with the force of my angry disposal. Kara's voice echoed in my memory. If you win, remember half is mine. I barely slept that night, alternating between checking the lottery ticket for the 100th time and staring at my ceiling in disbelief. By morning, I'd convinced myself it had to be a mistake, a hallucination brought on by stress and social isolation. But the numbers remained the same, and the ticket, despite its journey through my garbage, was undeniably real. The Ohio Lottery Commission offices in downtown Columbus were more impressive than I'd expected. Glass and steel reaching toward gray March clouds, with security guards and an atmosphere of serious business. I clutched the ticket in a plastic sleeve, my palms sweating despite the cool morning air. Mr. Woods? The lottery official, a woman named Janet Chen, smiled professionally as she examined my bedraggled ticket. This is quite a story. Found it in your trash? Threw it away in anger, I admitted. My daughter bought it as a Father's Day gift, but the circumstances were complicated. Janet nodded without judgment, placing the ticket under some kind of specialized scanner. We see all kinds of situations here. The important thing is verification, and I'm happy to tell you, Mr. Woods, that this is indeed a winning ticket. The words seemed to echo in the sterile office space. I gripped the arms of my chair, afraid I might float away. However, Janet continued, our verification process takes 48 hours for prizes of this magnitude. We need to confirm the ticket's authenticity through multiple security measures, prepare the legal documentation, and arrange for the payout process. I nodded numbly, signing papers and providing identification, barely processing the cascade of information about taxes, payment options, and publicity procedures. By the time I left the lottery office, my head was swimming with figures and legal terminology, but one fact remained crystal clear. I was worth $120 million. The drive home passed in a blur of familiar streets that suddenly felt foreign. Everything looked the same. The corner grocery store, Mrs. Patterson's rose garden, the elementary school where Kara had learned to read. But I felt like an alien visitor, observing someone else's life. I'd been home less than an hour when Kara's car screeched into my driveway. She burst through my front door without knocking, her face flushed with excitement and determination. "Dad, I heard about the lottery. Some woman at the office knows someone who works at the commission. She saw your name on the winners list." I remained seated at my kitchen table. The official lottery paperwork spread before me like evidence in a trial. "Hello, Kara." "Don't hello me." She practically vibrated with energy. "Do you realize what this means? We're millionaires. Remember what I said. Half is mine." "That was a gift, Kara." My voice came out calmer than I felt. "You can't take back a gift." Her expression shifted, the excitement giving way to something harder. "We had an agreement. Everyone at that dinner heard me say it. Witnesses, Dad. Legal witnesses." "You threw that ticket at me like garbage," I said quietly. "You bought it with money you stole from my account. It was never about sharing anything." "Stole?" Her voice pitched upward. "I used family money for a family purpose, and now you're trying to cheat me out of what's rightfully mine." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. The little girl who used to climb into my lap for bedtime stories had been replaced by someone I didn't recognize, someone whose first thought, upon hearing of my good fortune, was how much of it belonged to her. "The ticket was a gift," I repeated. "Whatever your intentions, whatever you said, it became mine the moment you gave it to me." "I'll sue you." She slammed her hand on my table, making the lottery papers jump. "I'll prove that ticket belongs to me. I'll take you to court and make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are." "And what kind of man am I, Kara?" She paused, her chest heaving with anger. For a moment I saw something flicker across her face. Recognition, maybe, or shame. But it passed quickly, replaced by cold determination, the kind who steals from his own daughter. She stormed out, as dramatically as she'd arrived, her parting shot hanging in the air like smoke. I listened to her car engine roar to life and fade into the distance, then looked down at the official documentation confirming my lottery win. $120 million, more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and all I felt was tired. I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing incessantly on the nightstand. 15 missed calls, 12 text messages, and a cascade of social media notifications that made my stomach lurch before I was fully conscious. The first Facebook post appeared at 6:47 a.m., timestamped just as most people were starting their day with coffee and morning news. "Urgent. My father has stolen my lottery ticket and is claiming the entire jackpot for himself. This is the same man who cut off my access to family money and publicly humiliated me. The ticket was my gift to him, with the clear understanding that winnings would be shared. This is elder abuse in reverse, when elderly people become so obsessed with money they'll cheat their own children. Please share this post. I need people to know the truth about what's happening." The post included a photo of me from last Christmas, looking serious and somewhat stern in my holiday sweater. Below it, comments were already accumulating like digital wildfire, but Kara hadn't stopped there. Her Instagram featured a tearful video of her sitting in her car, mascara running down her cheeks as she spoke directly to the camera. "I don't usually air family business like this, but I'm desperate. My own father has stolen my lottery ticket, literally stolen it, and now he's claiming the entire $120 million for himself. I bought that ticket as a Father's Day gift. I jokingly said, 'Half is mine,' because that's what you do with family, right? You share. But apparently my father heard that as a legal challenge instead of a daughter's love." Eric had coordinated his own campaign across LinkedIn and Facebook, his posts carrying the weight of professional credibility. Witnessing financial elder abuse is devastating, but reverse elder abuse is equally damaging to families. When elderly individuals become obsessed with money to the point of betraying their children's trust and generosity, we all lose. My wife is heartbroken by her father's greed. The lottery ticket was purchased as a gift, with clear verbal agreements about sharing, yet he claims exclusive ownership. This behavior destroys families and communities. My phone rang again. Margaret. "Stephen, what in God's name is happening? My neighbor just called asking if you really stole Kara's lottery ticket. Social media is going crazy." I explained the situation as simply as I could, but even to my own ears it sounded complicated. Yes, Kara had bought the ticket. Yes, she'd made jokes about sharing winnings. Yes, I had actually won. No, I didn't believe I owed her anything. But Stephen, Margaret said gently, she did buy it for you. With money she stole from my account, I reminded her. By noon, the story had gone viral in our small corner of the internet. Local Facebook groups buzzed with debates about family loyalty, legal obligations, and moral responsibilities. The neighborhood app next door featured heated discussions about the greedy lottery winner on Maple Street. I made the mistake of reading comments on Kara's posts. This is disgusting. How can a father do this to his daughter? Lawyers need to get involved. This is theft, plain and simple. I know this family. The daughter has always been so generous and kind. The father has always been weird about money. Team Kara. No way should an old man keep money that belongs to his daughter. Eric's professional network had mobilized too. Colleagues from his investment firm shared his posts with serious commentary about family values and financial ethics. Their shared social circle, people I'd known for years, publicly supported Kara's version of events. I closed my laptop and walked to my kitchen window, looking out at the neighborhood I'd called home for 30 years. 3 neighbors stood near my mailbox, clearly discussing the situation. When they saw me at the window, they scattered like guilty children. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Channel 6 wants to interview you about the lottery controversy. Can you call us? Another message. Columbus Dispatch seeking comment on family lottery dispute. And another. Legal representation available for lottery ticket disputes. Free consultation. I turned off my phone and sat in my quiet kitchen. The official lottery paperwork still spread across my table like evidence of my guilt. Outside, my neighbors whispered and speculated, their judgment delivered through social media comments and careful distances. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was worth $120 million, and I'd never felt more alone in my life. The morning light filtered through my kitchen window as I spread printed copies of Kara's social media posts across my table like evidence in a trial. Each comment, each share, each supportive response felt like another nail in the coffin of my reputation. The coffee grew cold in my cup as I read through the digital assassination of my character. My landline phone rang, cutting through the silence with its old-fashioned mechanical bell. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but something about its pattern suggested a business line. Mr. Woods, this is William Johnson, Eric's father. The voice was measured, professional, carrying the kind of authority that came from years of boardroom negotiations. I believe we need to talk. I gripped the receiver tighter. I'm not sure what there is to discuss, Mr. Johnson. There's quite a lot, actually. A pause, then. Could we meet this morning? Say Murphy's Diner on 5th Street, in an hour? Murphy's Diner was a modest family restaurant where I sometimes went for their Saturday morning special. The kind of place where Eric would never be caught dead. May I ask what this is about? The lottery ticket, William said simply, and what I witnessed on Father's Day. My heart hammered against my ribs. You were there. I was indeed. 1 hour, Mr. Woods. The line went dead, leaving me staring at the phone in confusion. Eric's father wanting to meet about the lottery ticket could only mean trouble. Maybe they were coordinating a legal strategy, or perhaps William was coming to pressure me into settling with Kara. I almost didn't go, but curiosity won over caution. Murphy's Diner occupied a corner lot that had hosted restaurants for 50 years. Red vinyl booths, checkered linoleum floors, and the kind of coffee that could wake the dead. I spotted William immediately. His tailored navy suit stood out like a peacock among sparrows in the humble establishment. He rose when he saw me, extending a well-manicured hand in greeting. Mr. Woods, thank you for coming. We slid into a booth near the window, where morning light illuminated the deep lines around William's eyes. The waitress, a motherly woman named Dolores, who'd been serving coffee here since I was in my 40s, poured 2 cups without being asked. I witnessed the entire gift exchange on Father's Day, William began without preamble. Every word, every gesture. Your daughter handed you that lottery ticket and explicitly called it your Father's Day gift. I studied his face, searching for signs of deception or manipulation. She's claiming we had an agreement about splitting any winnings. William's expression hardened. That's simply not what happened. I watched her throw that ticket across the table with a dismissive laugh. There was no negotiation, no agreement, no verbal contract. It was a gift, pure and simple. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through Facebook with the efficiency of someone who'd built a business empire in the digital age. What my son and daughter-in-law are doing is unconscionable. They're destroying your reputation with lies. You're Eric's father, I said carefully. Why would you go against your own son? William's laugh was bitter. Because I raised him to have integrity, and he's forgotten everything I taught him. This lottery situation has revealed something about Eric that deeply disappoints me. He showed me his phone screen where he'd begun typing a lengthy Facebook post. I'm going to set the record straight. My name carries weight in this community, Mr. Woods. People know I don't lie about business matters, and this is exactly that, a matter of legal ownership and ethical behavior. I read over his shoulder as he refined his statement. As a witness to the Father's Day gathering at Stephen Wood's home, I feel compelled to address the current social media controversy. I personally observed Kara Johnson purchase and present a lottery ticket to her father as a Father's Day gift. There was no negotiation, no agreement about sharing winnings, and no conditions attached to the gift. Mr. Woods is the rightful owner of that ticket and any winnings it may have generated. The current social media campaign against him is based on false information, and I cannot remain silent while a good man's reputation is being destroyed by members of my own family. You don't have to do this, I said quietly. Yes, I do. William's finger hovered over the post button. My son has forgotten what it means to be a man of honor. Perhaps public embarrassment will remind him. He posted the statement, and immediately his phone began buzzing with notifications. Within minutes, comments appeared from people in Columbus's business community, colleagues who knew William's reputation for honesty and fair dealing. This changes everything, I breathed, watching the tide of public opinion shift in real time. William pocketed his phone and looked at me directly. Mr. Woods, I built my business on integrity. I can't watch my son destroy that legacy with lies and manipulation. We sat in comfortable silence, watching normal people go about their Saturday morning routines. Families ordering pancakes, elderly couples sharing the newspaper, teenagers texting while their parents tried to engage them in conversation. Life continuing normally while my world transformed. The truth has a funny way of surfacing, William said finally. Sometimes it just needs the right person to speak it. We shook hands outside the diner, his grip firm and reassuring. As he walked toward his black Mercedes, I remained by my modest sedan, feeling something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Hope. 2 weeks later, the phone call I'd been waiting for finally came. Mr. Woods, this is Janet Chen from the Ohio Lottery Commission. Your verification process is complete, and we'd like to invite you to our formal check presentation ceremony tomorrow morning. A ceremony? I asked, still processing the magnitude of what was happening. We offer winners the choice between a private meeting and a public presentation, given the recent interest. In your case, we thought you might prefer the transparency of a public ceremony. I thought about Kara's social media campaign, about the whispered conversations that followed me through grocery stores, about the neighbors who no longer made eye contact. Yes, I'd like the public ceremony. Excellent. 10 a.m. at our Columbus headquarters. There will be media present, so dress appropriately. And Mr. Woods, congratulations. This is going to change your life. That evening I laid out my best clothes. A navy blue suit I'd bought for my wife's funeral 8 years ago. A white shirt that still had the crisp edges of professional pressing, and the tie Cora had given me for Christmas 5 years back, before everything changed. The lottery office buzzed with activity when I arrived. Television crews adjusted lighting equipment, photographers tested angles, and lottery officials bustled around with clipboards and official documents. I felt like an actor who'd wandered onto someone else's movie set. Mr. Woods? Janet Chen approached with a warm smile. Ready to become a millionaire? The actual ceremony was surprisingly formal. A backdrop featuring the Ohio Lottery logo, an oversized check that took 2 people to hold, and enough camera flashes to light up a stadium. When Janet announced me as the winner of the $120 million jackpot, the applause felt surreal. This is certainly unexpected, I said into the microphone, my voice carrying better than I'd hoped. I plan to use this blessing responsibly, to help others, to pursue dreams I'd put aside, and to live with dignity. The questions from reporters came rapidly. How did it feel to win? What were my plans? Would I quit working? I answered as honestly as I could, focusing on gratitude and responsibility rather than the family drama that had brought me here. Then, through the crowd of media personnel, I saw them. Kara and Eric pushed through the gathering, her face flushed with determination and desperation. She wore the kind of outfit she reserved for important occasions, a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly pension. "Stop!" she called out, her voice cutting through the professional atmosphere like a knife. "That's my ticket. We had an agreement." Security personnel moved immediately, but Kara's voice carried over their intervention. "Everyone here needs to know. That ticket was mine. He's stealing from his own daughter." The cameras, which had been focused on me and the ceremonial check, swiveled toward the commotion. This was the kind of drama that television news lived for. "Ma'am, you need to step back from the ceremony area," a security guard said firmly but politely. I looked directly at Kara, feeling calmer than I had in months. "Kara, please don't do this here." But she was beyond reason, gesticulating wildly as Eric tried to pull her back. "I bought that ticket. I said half was mine. Everyone at that dinner heard me." A reporter thrust a microphone toward me. "Mr. Woods, can you comment on this family dispute?" "The ticket was a Father's Day gift from my daughter," I said clearly, my voice steady despite the chaos unfolding nearby. "Mr. William Johnson, who was present at the dinner, has already confirmed the circumstances of that gift. That's all there is to it." "What do you plan to do with the money?" another reporter asked. I thought about Kara screaming in the background, about the months of manipulation and betrayal, about the years I'd spent enabling her worst impulses out of misguided love. "I plan to help others who deserve it," I said. "I want to start a business I've dreamed about for years, and I intend to live with the kind of integrity that makes a person worthy of good fortune." The ceremony concluded with handshakes and official paperwork, while Kara and Eric stood by their BMW in the parking lot, arguing with each other. I could see Eric's gestures growing more animated, his voice rising to match hers. I walked to my car carrying the ceremonial check and official documentation that made me one of the wealthiest men in Ohio. As I drove away, I glimpsed them in my rearview mirror, still arguing beside their expensive car, their relationship fracturing under the weight of their own greed. For the first time in months, I smiled. The next morning, I was sitting at my kitchen table with the newspaper spread before me, reading about my lottery win in black and white print, when I heard a car door slam outside. Through my window, I saw Kara walking up my driveway, but her demeanor was completely different from yesterday's aggressive confrontation. She moved slowly, almost hesitantly, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Instead of her usual bold entrance, she knocked softly on my door, 3 gentle taps that sounded almost apologetic. I opened the door to find her eyes red-rimmed and puffy, her designer clothes wrinkled as if she'd slept in them. "Dad, could we talk, please?" My paternal instincts stirred despite everything that had happened. "Come in, Kara." She followed me to the living room, perching on the edge of the couch like a bird ready to take flight. Her hands twisted in her lap as she looked around the modest space that had once been her childhood home. "I'm so sorry about yesterday," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was just overwhelmed and scared. I wasn't thinking clearly." The tears came then, streaming down her cheeks with practiced precision. "Eric has been pressuring me so much about money lately. Our finances they're worse than I told anyone. I didn't know who else to turn to." I settled into my recliner, maintaining careful distance between us. "What kind of financial trouble, Kara?" "We're about to lose our house," she said, her voice breaking on the words. "The mortgage payments, the credit cards, Eric's business, it's all falling apart. We owe almost $400,000, and the bank is starting foreclosure proceedings." She painted a picture of sleepless nights, panic attacks, and desperate attempts to keep up appearances while their world crumbled. Eric's investment firm was failing, she claimed, losing clients and hemorrhaging money. The country club membership they couldn't afford to cancel. The private school tuition for Jake that was draining their resources. "I was too embarrassed to ask for help before," she continued, wiping her eyes with a tissue. "You know how proud Eric is. He'd die if he knew I was here, begging my father for money." I listened to her performance, And it was a performance, I realized with painful clarity. The same techniques she'd used as a teenager when she wanted something. The tears, the helpless damsel routine, the appeals to my protective instincts. "You've always been there for me before," she said, reaching across the space between us to touch my hand. "I just need help one more time. Just enough to save our house and get back on our feet." "How much, Kara?" $2 million would solve everything, she said quickly, as if she'd rehearsed the number. "It sounds like a lot, but it's nothing compared to what you won. You'd still have over $100 million left." The simplicity of her request was breathtaking. $2 million, a sum that would have represented 40 years of my pre-lottery income, delivered as casually as asking to borrow $20 for gas. "Kara," I said gently, "I've heard these same promises before." Her expression shifted slightly, confusion flickering across her features. "What do you mean?" "You stole $13,000 from my account without asking. You publicly humiliated me on social media. You tried to take my lottery ticket by force." I kept my voice calm, factual. "Now you want me to reward that behavior by giving you $2 million? This is different." The tears came faster now, more desperate. "I was wrong before, I admit that. But we're talking about losing everything, Dad. Our house, our life, Jake's education. You need to learn to solve your own problems." The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. Kara's face transformed, the mask of vulnerability slipping to reveal something harder underneath. "You're really going to do this?" she asked, her voice taking on a familiar edge. "You're going to let your own daughter lose her house while you sit on $100 million? I love you, Kara, but I won't enable your choices anymore." She stood abruptly, pacing to the window and back. "Fine, fine, but don't expect to be part of Jake's life going forward. Don't expect Christmas visits or family dinners or phone calls when he graduates high school." The threats came faster now, each one designed to hit my deepest fears about isolation and family loss. No grandchildren at my funeral, no relationship with future generations, a lonely old man dying alone because he was too selfish to help his only child. "If that's your choice," I said quietly, "I'll have to accept it." The finality in my voice seemed to shock her. She stared at me for a long moment, perhaps recognizing that her manipulation toolkit had finally met its match. "You've changed," she said, her voice cold with disappointment. "Money has made you cruel." "No, Kara. Money has made me free." She stormed out without another word, her footsteps echoing on my front walkway as she marched to her car. I stood at my front window, watching her drive away with visible anger, her tires squealing as she peeled out of my driveway. I turned away from the window and looked around my quiet home, feeling a mixture of sadness and relief. The little girl who used to fall asleep in my lap, reading stories, was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize and couldn't save. I walked to my kitchen to make tea, my movements calm and purposeful. For the first time in years, my home felt truly peaceful. 3 months later, I stood in my empty living room, holding my phone as movers loaded the last boxes. I scrolled to Kara's contact and selected "Block this number." Some bridges once burned weren't meant to be rebuilt. The drive to Dayton took 2 hours through rolling countryside. In this new city, I would be simply Stephen Woods, new resident, not the lottery winner from the news. My house sat on a quiet street, 3 hours from Columbus, far enough that unexpected visits would require real commitment. Henderson's classic auto restoration had been for sale for months. When I walked through the shop, inhaling the familiar scents of motor oil and polish, I knew I'd found my purpose. "You sure you want this much work?" asked Tom Henderson, gesturing at project cars filling his bays. "Most folks your age are thinking about slowing down." I ran my hand along a 1967 Mustang's fender. "I'm just getting started." Within a week, Henderson's became Woods Classic Auto Restoration. I hired 3 local mechanics and established the Supporting Single Fathers Foundation, remembering my own struggles after my wife's death. Evenings in Dayton were peaceful. I could walk without whispered conversations following me. The local diner served coffee without gossip about my personal life. "Settling in okay?" asked Helen, my neighbor, bringing homemade cookies. "Neighborhood's quiet, but we look out for each other." "Quiet is exactly what I hoped for," I told her. The shop became my sanctuary. Working alongside younger mechanics, I rediscovered satisfaction in solving problems with my hands rather than my checkbook. We restored a 1955 Chevrolet to mint condition. The owner wept when he saw it, and I understood completely. I thought about Kara sometimes, but without sharp pain. The money hadn't changed me. It revealed what I'd always been underneath years of enabling. My phone rang occasionally with unknown numbers I suspected were her, but I let them go to voicemail. On Thursday evening, I locked up after completing a 1969 Camaro restoration. Driving home, I passed the community center, where my foundation's plaque read, "Supporting strong families through tough times." I parked and looked up at emerging stars. Somewhere, Kara lived with her choices' consequences. What I could control was building something meaningful. Every restored car, every foundation grant, was a vote for a world where character mattered more than connections. The lottery ticket hung framed in my office now, not as a trophy, but as a reminder that sometimes the most valuable gifts come disguised as garbage, and the most necessary lessons come wrapped in pain. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching. 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 Thank you for watching.